the best for Aaron Hernandez.
Half your family telling me to go here, half my family telling me to go to Notre Dame, Michigan, Miami.
For a kid barely old enough to drive, he's the #1 rated high school tight end in the country.
Bristol Central High School.
Aaron Hernandez was a different level of athlete.
He was kind.
He wasn't someone who picked on other kids.
Patriots reward him with a $40 million contract.
Positions, how do you have to account for him?
What's the hardest thing to eat during an interview?
Well, George, good morning. This is now Aaron Hernandez's new reality, the medium security facility here behind me, where he woke up in a jail cell this morning all by himself. This after he was arrested yesterday, charged with murder, released by the New England Patriots, and the judge denying him bail.
Aaron Hernandez, a superstar athlete with a tortured and violent personal life.
Did he make himself a murderer?
How do you plead? Not guilty.
What's the evidence?
In my opinion, the firearm shown in the video stills is a Glock pistol.
No one has allegedly murdered 2 people and then played an entire season as a professional athlete.
Hello everyone, my name is Hailey Elizabeth, and if you don't know who I am, I post videos pertaining a little bit of everything: vlogs, conspiracy theories, true crime, controversial people, and all things spooky, scary, skeletons. So if you're into any of that, you can subscribe, and if not, that's okay, that's chill. Let's just hang out, have a good time, talk about the case of Aaron Hernandez, the NFL star murderer. I put a Christmas tree up and I put lights. There's still nothing up there, but don't worry. Next video, there will be something up there. Take my word on that. Now I have to actually put something up there. What am I even going to put up there? Aaron Hernandez was born on November 6, 1989, making him a Scorpio. He was born in Bristol, Connecticut with his older brother DJ, his father Dennis, and his mother Terry. Although Bristol, Connecticut in itself is a pretty nice neighborhood, when it came to the household, the father was super strict and he was also very abusive to his wife and kids. And from Aaron's words, he says that he remembers so many times of his father coming home drunk and beating all 3 of them. He even remembers a time where his father came home drunk and the 2 boys were sleeping, but Aaron was still awake, and he hears his parents getting into an argument and his father banging his mother's head against the sink. Now, the reasoning of the abuse would be like just kind of a mixture of things. Sometimes he was just mad. His father tended to have a very short temper. He expected his boys to be perfect students, not just grade-wise, but in sports as well, because the father actually went to University of Connecticut to play football. He was very, very good at it. So that's kind of what he expected of his boys, to kind of follow that legacy, the Hernandez name. As I said, the mother and father and like the whole family situation was just extremely toxic. There were many times where the mother tried to kick out the father. That just never really worked out because she ended up taking him back anyways, and it was very, you know, hard on the kids because why are you bringing him back into the house? It affects me too because he mentally and physically abuses me as well. And so that's kind of just the environment that they grew up in. There were many times where the couple would get divorced and then get remarried and then get divorced again. It's so odd because the father like abused Aaron, yet he had a very close relationship with his father. He felt like he could go to his father with anything. There had been actually one time where Aaron was playing youth football. Coach had done something that the father didn't agree with. The father literally just punched the youth coach in the stomach because of a dispute over coaching methods. With the father's short temper, you'll see later on how that short temper definitely passed on to Aaron. January of 2006, while the father was going through his hernia surgery, he actually unfortunately passed away. Aaron was very, very close with his father, so this news was extremely tough on Aaron. When you're growing up in like an abusive household, emotions aren't really expressed. So he was feeling all this sadness but had no clue how to express them, which made him even more frustrated. He would then express his feelings through sports. He played basketball, football, and track. He wasn't really doing well at school anymore because since his father had died, there was no one around to kind of keep him in check. So he just kind of let his grades fly by. Now, along with his grades slipping, his relationship with his mother was also slipping as well. Ever since the father died, it's like Aaron and his mom's relationship just kind of started to tumble. They started to argue a lot. They were not seeing eye to eye. They were never on the same page. At the age of 16, that's when Aaron decided to live with his older cousin Tanya and her husband Jeff. So Tanya and Jeff kind of took in Aaron until just a couple months after they took in Aaron, it was revealed that Jeff and Terry, Tanya's husband and Aaron's mother, were actually having an affair together. When this affair was made known, Tanya filed for divorce, and Terry and Jeff decided to move in together, leaving Tanya and Aaron kind of just out in the cold by themselves. Losing his father, and it was such like an emotional hit on him. Not only did that just happen, his mother moved on within a couple months and is like getting married to a brand new man. Through this, Tanya basically just started to raise Aaron on her own. Aaron, as an adult, even said that when he was a kid, Tanya was more of a mother to him than his actual mother was. His grades, as I said, was also screwing up, but something that I should mention is that after the fact, like many years later, he believes at the time he actually had ADHD, and that's why he was not really doing well in school. But since his family life was so abusive, he never really got the treatment that he needed. I don't really know much about football, but if you do know a lot about football, I'm about to read you some stats. He had 31 career touchdowns, and he tied a state record of 180.7 receiving yards. Again, I don't really know much about football, but I feel like it's very important that you know that he was a really good player. As I said, he also did basketball and track, which he was also really good at, but he just didn't really find passion in basketball or track as much as he did with football. In 2006, at 17 years old, he started dating his soon-to-be fiance. It's either Cheyenne or Cheyenne. I've heard people say it both ways. I'm just gonna say Cheyenne. Now, Cheyenne and him just had like a couple classes together and started dating, so they were kind of like childhood sweethearts, and then as they grew up, they got married and had a kid. Cheyenne met Aaron at a very rocky point in his life. As I said, his living situation with Tanya, and then he started falling very heavily addicted to weed and alcohol. I know there's like a lot of misconception. A lot of people say that like you can't get addicted to weed. You can get addicted to anything. So just to explain that a little bit further, I've heard a lot of people say before that you can't really get addicted to weed. Basically, where Aaron was at in his life, he was indeed like addicted to weed. He kept on relying onto weed. Even if he was doing something like going to the store or hanging out with friends, he always had to be high, and he depended on weed all the time to make himself feel better. He couldn't do anything sober, and it wasn't like medical marijuana or anything. It was just, you know, regular use weed that he would buy from a dealer. That's what I mean when he was very addicted to weed. He was using it constantly. It got in the way of his everyday interactions, and you'll see later on that it actually became a really big problem when he was trying to do football, like professional football. So that's what I mean when he fell into like a very unhealthy relationship with weed, is that he just couldn't live without it. Cheyenne was just always there for him, and she just kind of, you know, she was 17, so like what could she really do? And also in 2006, when he was 17, he got scouted by UConn, aka University of Connecticut. That is actually the university that his father went to, and this is also the university that his big brother DJ was actually playing at as a quarterback. So the University of Connecticut, you know, keeping it in the family. He visited the University of Connecticut campus, and he didn't really like the vibe of it. He didn't like the university. He just didn't see himself thriving in that college, but he felt like he needed to go to that college because that's where his brother went, and that's where his father went. But one of the colleges that went his way was University of Florida. He went to University of Florida, and this college, Aaron felt like he was home. Like, this is the college that he felt like he really wanted to go to, but it was just going to be really hard to go to because he knew that he was going to be disappointing his brother, because his brother was making it really hard for Aaron. You gotta go here, you know, it's always been our dream to play together. Aaron just kind of realized that this is his life and he should be able to, you know, play and do whatever he wants. He ended up actually going to the University of Florida. He wasn't really that good in school, so there was gonna be a lot of like loopholes to get through. The University of Florida flew out to Connecticut and talked to Aaron's school and basically begged the school to allow Aaron to graduate a semester early. Somehow the college was able to convince the high school, and Aaron ended up graduating early to go play for University of Florida. So he started college when he was just 17 years old. He was ready for college football, but academically he was not ready for college. Same thing with high school. He started to really flunk on all of his classes. College, they expect you to have very good grades, be a really good student. 2007, but this was like early 2007. As I said, Aaron's birthday was like in November, so this was early 2007 where he wasn't 18 yet. Went to a bar with a friend where Aaron had 2 drinks, and there was a big altercation with Aaron and the owner of the place. Aaron was drunk and high like he typically was, and he refused to tip for the drinks, ended up getting into a fight with the bar owner and punched him on the side of the head, bursting his eardrum. The coach was talking to the police. The football team had like a lawyer, so the lawyer was talking with the police and they were able to settle an agreement. I don't know what happened to the victim. I think he got like a large sum of money to be quiet about it, but it really did show the coaches that he did have kind of a short temper. Just in his freshman year, he ended up starting 11 of 13 games and finished the season with 34 receptions for 381 yards and 5 touchdowns. As far as off the field, a lot of players, you know, complained of Aaron, saying that he was very short-tempered. He just like always had to get high for everything. As I said, he had a lot of issues with drugs and alcohol. In 2009, his junior year, he actually had 9 receptions for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. In that same year, he won the John McKee Award for Nation's Best Tight End, because that was the position that he played. He played a tight end. Although he was, you know, again, very, very good at football, he was very heavily into drugs and alcohol, and it was known to the entire team and coaches. They felt like, you know, Aaron's well-being was very, very important, so they just thought either he gets help or he can't play. Aaron, of course, refused to get help because he was denying that he had a problem at all. His senior year, 2010, the coach refused Aaron to play for that season unless he got help. You can't play football here unless you get help. So if you want to play football, just try for the NFL draft and hope that a pro team picks you up. He kind of realized, like, what is the point of me going to college? So he decided to drop out his senior year and join the 2010 NFL draft. A thing about getting drafted into the NFL, the National Football League, it's very, very hard to get picked up into a draft because they all do very extensive background checks. They check out all of your crime histories, your family history, your grades from like middle school, high school, and college. If you had an altercation in high school, they'll like go to your high school and ask people how you were in high school socially, and they'll get information about you that way. It's very hard to get into the draft unless you're like a perfect person. And so with Aaron's history, a lot of run-ins with the law, a lot of people saying that he was constantly high and drunk all the time, his college dropping him his senior year because of his alcohol and drug problem. It was very hard for Aaron to have a, you know, professional team even look his way. So that is when he wrote a letter to the New England Patriots, basically saying that he is a changed man and he really, really loves football and he will do anything to play it again. And he also agreed to a bi-weekly drug test to ensure that he will not be high on the field anymore. Aaron Hernandez was picked 113th by the New England Patriots. So his letter worked. He ended up getting on the team, and when he did, he again really started to prove himself out on the field. People described Aaron to be, and I quote, tight end in a receiver body that played running back and returned punts and returned kicks. So, end quote. He could play a lot of positions, and he was very good at whatever position he did play. He was so good to the point where in 2011, he actually signed a 5-year, $40 million contract with the New England Patriots, basically confirming his spot on the team for 5 years. But a little bit of like a backtrack, about a month prior to him getting signed, it was said, and it was also shown from security camera footage, that Aaron and these two guys were getting into an argument in a bar. And so after the two guys left, Aaron and his friend followed the two guys out, and then all of a sudden later on that night, the two guys that Aaron was getting into a fight with actually got shot while they were driving in their car. Both of them ended up dying. Witnesses who saw the situation described the car as a silver SUV. Actually got like footage of going through like toll booths and stuff because they were trying to follow the car to get a location on where the shooter was. But since there was no physical evidence of Aaron being in that car, he kept on saying that like he doesn't even drive an SUV. He drives like this really fancy sports car. So the police just kind of dropped Aaron as a suspect. They just thought maybe it's just a coincidence. Already, like even before he got signed, he was already in some very deep, you know, legal troubles. Another thing that happened that the football team tried to cover up as well, when Aaron was in the club, he was with a friend. His name was Alexander Bradley. A month after Aaron getting signed, it was said by Alexander Bradley that Aaron had actually shot him in the eye over a dispute of a lost phone. Aaron basically costed him his right eye. Aaron's, you know, professional legal team, they tried to keep it as hush as possible because they didn't want anything coming up to surface. And that's basically that. Like, Alexander was just essentially ruled out. Like, they were like, yeah, here's some money. Sorry about that. And then, you know, thank God Alexander comes up later on in the story. June 17th of 2013 at around 5 p.m. a jogger is jogging in like an industrial park area of Connecticut, and whilst this jogger is jogging, he sees a body in the middle of a like very open area. He calls the police, and the police identify the body as Odin Lloyd. As far as the crime scene, they found a few things such as tire tracks, footprints, and security camera footage, as well as testimonies from people who were working the overnight shift at the industrial plant. They confiscated Odin's phone. It was pretty clear as to who Odin was with last night and who they would question first, and those people were Aaron Hernandez and two men named Ernest and Carlos. Of course, Aaron, when he was taken into questioning, denied. They decided to get a search warrant on Aaron's house and confiscate all of their security camera footage and try to paint a picture, get you at home at a certain time where the crime would have taken place. But when they confiscated the home surveillance footage, that was basically all the evidence that they really needed. Odin's phone, they found conversations between Aaron and Odin talking about hanging out that night. Another thing about Odin, very, very important, don't know why I didn't say this. Aaron's wife, Cheyenne, Odin was her sister's husband. So basically Odin was like Aaron's brother-in-law. I really needed to say that and I forgot. Odin is basically Aaron's brother-in-law. A little bit of backstory on Odin. Odin was also a football player as well. He was playing number 53 for the Boston Bandits, and he was actually a very, very good football player as well. Odin grew up in a pretty bad neighborhood in Boston, so football was sort of like his outlet, similar Similar to Aaron, he was 27 years old when he was found dead. So he was still very, very young. He still had like a lot of life left to live. A lot of people who played football with Odin described Odin as very optimistic. He was always looking forward to the future because he knew that he grew up in a bad neighborhood, but he was trying to turn around his life to give his future kids and future wife a wonderful life. Really wanting to have kids one day and really wanting to get married. Due to Aaron's phone logs, his phone conversations with Ernest and Carlos shows that Ernest, Carlos, and Aaron were trying to set up a meeting. Now, through text, they never describe what this meeting was for. Aaron just says that it was like a normal meetup, like they basically call their hangouts meetings. Which, like, try harder, I don't know. So on June 17th at around 12:15 a.m., that is when you see both Carlos and Ernest enter into the household. So they get there pretty late at night. And also, it was on a Sunday. So, like, very late night to just be hanging out. Like, I could understand if it was like a Friday or Saturday, but a Sunday, like, everyone has work or something in the morning. From driveway security camera footage, you can see Ernest, Carlos, and Aaron getting into a silver car, a silver Nissan that is actually rented. Aaron weirdly rented a car, which was so odd because he already had a car. Guys get into the car. They leave for about an hour, but when they do come back, you can clearly see Aaron just walking around the house with a gun in his hand. At 1:09 a.m., that is when the three men go back into the car and they drive off. During this time frame, this is when Odin starts receiving texts on his phone from Aaron, basically Aaron asking Odin if he wants to hang out. At this point, Odin was already hanging out with his two friends and he had work in the morning, but Odin was like, you know what, who cares? Like, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna hang out with my boys. It's gonna be really fun. It's a great day. I'm just gonna be tired at work tomorrow and that's fine. So then that is when Odin agreed to hang out with Aaron, Carlos, and Ernest. 1:30 a.m., you can see the guys enter into a gas station. Aaron enters the gas station and gets just gum. He just gets gum, like bubble gum, and then that's it. It kind of sounded like one of the guys told Aaron, like, oh, you just got to go in there and buy something, like just so the security cameras can see where you're at during this time. And he just got in there and like looked around, grabbed gum, and then bought it. It was specifically blue Bubblicious, and they drove off. And then at 2:30 a.m., that is when from an across the street security footage, you can see the same exact silver Nissan pull in front of Odin's house. Odin gets in the car and the car drives off. Odin gets in the car and Odin thinks that, they're just going back to Aaron's house to hang out. As time goes by, he realizes that the scenery is a little different than what he remembers and realizes they are not going to Aaron's house. Around 3:07 a.m., that is when he texts his sister, do you know who I'm with? And then later on, his sister texts back and says, I'm sorry, my phone died. Who was that? At 3:19 a.m., he says NFL. Then at 3:23, he says, just so you know. Literally tracked this car through cell phone towers. Were able to get some information from the cell phone towers and able to track the car and exactly where it was going because for some reason they still had their phones on them. Shortly after that text at 3:31 a.m., that is when the industrial park security footage, small headlights appear in like the top right corner around the same exact area where Odin's body was found. Witnesses that were doing overnight shift say that during this time in the night, they heard about 3 or 4 pops. 3:35 p.m., so just 3 minutes later, those same headlights appear in the corner, but then they drive off. This industrial plant was a mile away from Aaron's house. The time for Aaron to go from the industrial plant to his house was only a couple minutes, and it actually lined up with the security camera footage. 3:29 p.m., just a couple minutes after the murder, that is when Aaron comes home. The weird thing is that Aaron does not have Carlos and Ernest with him. He basically just comes out of the car by himself. Another really odd thing is that when he comes into the house with a gun in his hand. The body was discovered the following morning by a jogger, like I said, and at first they didn't really want to pounce on Aaron because Aaron has a track record of like screwing up and having people cover it up for him. So they wanted to tread very lightly when they were doing this. When they were investigating the crime scene, they found a tire track, the same exact tire track of the rental car that Aaron had used. So when they went back to the car rental place to like take a look at the car and compare, the rental place had actually said that when Aaron dropped off the car that day, they have to do a check on it, make sure it's not dirty, make sure it has enough gas, etc., etc. When they were cleaning out the car, she actually found a bullet casing underneath one of the seats, as well as chewed up blue bubble gum stuck to one of the seats. The lines are just aligning way too quickly. But when investigating the crime scene even farther, they found some shoe tracks that matched the exact size and style of what Aaron Hernandez was wearing that night when he went into the gas station. And they checked his house and they found the exact shoes with the exact prints. All these signs were pointing to Aaron. Since Carlos and Ernest was with him, they kind of saw Ernest and Carlos as accomplices. Oh, I forgot the exact date. I'll put it on screen. But basically, Aaron was arrested from his home. What they saw on the security camera footage is the day, well, technically the day of the murder, because it happened like really early in the morning, like 3 in the morning. 1:15 p.m. that day, when they were looking through Cheyenne's phone, they saw text between her and Aaron around this time. Aaron was talking about a box and how Cheyenne needs to dispose of it. And so around 1:14 p.m. you see Cheyenne with a huge black bag with the box inside of it and basically carrying it out and disposing of it. When Cheyenne was asked about this later on in court, she basically just says that she doesn't remember.
Box that was in the bag that was in the trunk of the car.
I did.
And what did you do with it?
I disposed of it.
And when you say you disposed of it, well, where did you dispose of it?
In a dumpster.
And where was the dumpster?
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe she doesn't remember because she was just scared, but maybe she does remember, but she doesn't want to say it because it might have like Aaron's prints on it. The bullet casings that were found in the car matched the same exact like bullet holes that were found in Odin. Odin was found with a total of 6 bullets. Since there's so much evidence against Aaron at this point, Aaron has no choice but to just go to trial with it. This kind of took a lot of people by storm. And it also did not help that during this time, the New England Patriots were about to go into the Super Bowl. So whilst Aaron was doing his like court hearing, the New England Patriots was out there like on Super Bowl Sunday doing their Super Bowl thing. No one in the courthouse was allowed to wear anything that was like football related. Even if it wasn't the Patriots, even if it was like the Chicago Bears or something, you could not wear any sort of football attire on in the courtroom. Whilst this hearing was going on, they actually got a surprise visit from the New England Patriots owner, Robert Kraft. He was basically making his statement saying that Aaron was talking to him about the murder of Odin, and he knew the exact time of when Odin had died before all of the press. Aaron's defense lawyer basically said that the reasoning why Aaron knew a lot more information than the press did, and before the press did, is because this was his brother-in-law. Whatever his wife knew, his wife told him. Odin was family to him, so of course he knew, you know, all of the details that a lot of people didn't. Very like heavy thing was the motive. Why did Aaron even kill Odin in the first place? It looked pretty random to just kill your brother-in-law. They brought up surveillance camera footage of a club 2 nights before the murder of Odin, and what do you know, in the club was Odin, Aaron, Ernest, and Carlos. Aaron, Ernest, and Carlos were ganging up on Odin, and they were having some sort of altercation together, but since the club was so loud, you couldn't really hear hands wavering, them going back and forth, and eventually Aaron, Carlos, and Ernest left the club, and Odin left the club as well. This argument has to be speculated to be about weed. Basically, Odin had bought some weed off of Aaron. Aaron hadn't received the money from Odin yet. Aaron kept on yelling at Odin like, where's my money? I have your money, I have your money, like I'll get it to you soon. And that's basically where that like argument had stemmed from. And then 2 days later, Odin ends up dead. And then along with this club situation, the other club footage, remember when he had that altercation with the two guys in the club, and then all of a sudden that night those two guys get shot up in their car? Investigating on Aaron a little bit, trying to figure out if he has or ever has had a silver SUV. The New England Patriots had actually leased Aaron a silver USV before, but Aaron for some reason just denied that that ever happened, and like he has never had a silver SUV in his life. Way earlier, Tanya. Remember Tanya from his childhood? That was like a really big motherly figure to Aaron. They started interviewing Tanya to just get a little bit more on his backstory. They started looking and snooping around the house, and they found keys to a SUV. And that's when they asked Tanya if they could go into the garage and check it out. And when they did go into the garage, sitting in the garage was the same exact SUV, silver SUV, that they had been trying to find for the past 2 months, just sitting in the garage. They knew exactly that this was the car that they were looking for, and then they arrested Tanya. Tanya was technically withholding evidence from the police. Because of this, Tanya ended up going into jail for a couple of months. Tanya is suffering from breast cancer, and so her going into jail for a couple of months just really took a toll on her health. She didn't die in jail, but her treatments whilst in jail just weren't as consistent as they were, or like careful as they were when she was out of jail. After all of this, when Aaron was in court, his defense lawyer was actually a really good defense lawyer. Like, his defense lawyer brought up so many pieces of evidence that proved that Aaron did not do it. The rental car situation, remember how I told you that like in the rental car they found a bullet casing and chewed up gum? Well, apparently they ended up never finding that in the rental car, but they found it in a dumpster. Only reason they said that it belonged to Aaron is because when they ran DNA tests on it, they found that Aaron's DNA was on the bullet casing. It doesn't mean that Aaron's DNA was on the bullet casing to begin with. It could just mean that Aaron's DNA was on the gum and then passed on to the bullet casing. Whilst this trial was going on, they actually celebrated Odin's what would have been his 28th birthday. Not the craziest thing, but it is the most like disrespectful thing, I would say. Remember Odin's text messages with his sister saying, "Do you know who I'm with? I'm with NFL, just so you know." Those texts never appeared in court because apparently those texts were not proof that Odin was fearful for his life in that moment. So those texts were never shown to the court because they were like, oh, he's just being silly. He's just being silly. That doesn't show fear. That just sounds like a normal conversation to me. Those text messages seemed like he was fearful for his life. Like he wanted to make sure that someone knew where he was at just in case something happened to him. And like for some reason, people just saw that as like, oh, that means nothing. That has nothing to do with the case. He's just texting his sister. But at this specific court hearing, Aaron does not blame himself, but instead starts putting all the blame onto Carlos and Ernest. Because of this, Carlos and Ernest were asked to show up to court, and then after, you know, asking a bunch of questions, seeing them on the surveillance, they concluded that they were involved somehow. They were sentenced to life in prison for being an accomplice to the murder of Odin Lloyd. Okay, so update. Back in 2016, 3 years after their initial sentencing, they actually were charged at first with the first-degree murder of Odin Lloyd and was sentenced to life imprisonment. Well, back in 2016, 3 years later, they got retried, and then at that retrial, they were given the conviction of an accessory to murder, which is only 7 years. Meaning, 2016 plus 7 minus 3. Girl, are they out? There's no articles about their release date. So they're either released or like about to be released in 2023. They didn't get their 7-year sentence until that retrial, but they at that point had already served 3 years. So I don't know if that 3 years is counted into their 7 years or if their 7 years started in 2016. Either they're out and no one has said anything about it, or they're being released in 2023. But yeah, their charges changed. Aaron's case, there's just so much evidence against Aaron in this case that it was very hard for, you know, even his defense lawyer to try to defend Aaron. He even said at the very end that he believes Aaron didn't do it, but he does believe that Aaron possibly did help cover it up. So even the defense lawyer himself says to the court that he believes Aaron had something to do with it. Craziest thing, they ended up, you know, finding the SUV that they had been trying to look for so long. And you know what they do when they find it? They basically just ruled it as a coincidence. Even though they had seen that the New York Patriots had leased him this SUV, and it was the same exact SUV that was found at the toll, they just thought it was a coincidence, so he was never charged with that. He was found not guilty. As far as like his conviction, he was given life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for the first-degree murder of Odin Lloyd. Even to this day, no one knows where the murder weapon is. You know, it was clear that he was walking around with a gun in the house, and then it was clear that Cheyenne definitely like hid the murder weapon, but there was no one knows, like even to this day, where that gun is at. But as far as Aaron Hernandez now, back in 2017, he was actually found dead in his jail cell. He had actually hung himself, and before he hung himself, he wrote his wife a suicide note. As far as my own personal thoughts and opinions, there's so much evidence against him, it's kind of hard to pin it on absolutely anyone else. Something that I also should mention is that after the fact, when he was given psychiatric evaluations, he was given a brain scan, and turns out his brain, he had a lot of brain damage basically because he had been playing football since he was 8 years old, and his parents never really cared about him enough to give him like any medical attention. As I said, they weren't even like able to give him medical attention for his ADHD so he could succeed in school. So whenever he would get like a concussion or something, his parents just weren't really there for him. He ended up having a lot of brain damage, and a lot of people believe that this is, you know, a causing factor as to why he did what he did. He just didn't really think about it, even though he did kind of think about it because he had to buy the rental car, he had to invite his 2 friends over, he needed to get the guns. At the end of the day, killing someone is bad, especially an innocent person like Odin. Many years afterwards, Odin's family did a interview with, I think it was CNBC, and Odin's family is still very distraught of their son. Odin was, you know, an amazing guy. He was super funny, super talented. He was meant to go into National League football, but he just never got there. So I think it's good that he got the life sentence because it's what he deserved. That's basically the end of today's story. I don't really know what else to say because that was a really dark story. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe. subscribe. And if you want to follow me on any of my socials, like my Instagram, that will be linked down below, as well as my PO box if you want to send me anything, and also as well as the makeup that I use on my face. So if you're like, girl, what is that shadow? What is that lip? That will all be linked down below if you want to check it out. Put up my Christmas decorations. As you can see, I put up my Christmas tree. I put up my Christmas lights. Very, very fun stuff. I can't like figure out my bangs today. These wispy bangs were doing it for me for about like 4 seconds, and then now I kind of want like thicker bangs. Because honestly, okay, a lot of people want wispy bangs because they're not that, you know, big of a commitment. They're actually like kind of hard to manage because since they are wispy, you can't really keep on applying heat to them because small section and thin section of your hair, you can easily just burn it off. If there's just like a slight draft, your bangs are leaving your face. Like they're all over the place. I might even do it right now. What if I did it right now? No, my camera's gonna die. I got my Christmas tree. Do you want to see up close? Ah, my light fell. Oh my god, and my muffin fell earlier. Girl, give me a break. I want to thank you guys for all the love and support on my last video. That was like really, really cool. I was very astounded to realize that you guys actually really liked those videos. I was very surprised to see that because I always thought that like, oh, you know, they're probably just going to be into true crime. I was just overthinking it. So I was like, you know what? I might as well just use this opportunity to switch it up a little bit. And so then I did, and I made that little treehouse video that had been about 2 weeks in the making, and I do plan on doing more stuff like that in the future. I'm just not sure on what to do next. So if you guys want me to like, I don't know, if you guys have any suggestions on what I should do, I kind of want to just do a little bit of everything on my channel. I'm gonna use my channel as a spam channel and just like dump anything that I like onto here. It's gonna be very chaotic, so hopefully, you know, you have your seatbelts on.
Put y'all seatbelts on. Psh, YOLO.
That's all I have to say. Thank you so much, and I love you very, very much. It means a lot. My heart goes do thinking about you guys. My camera's gonna die. What else is new? I really need to buy like more batteries for my camera. I only have 1 battery for my camera, and then I charge it, and then the battery lasts me about like an hour and a half. Oh my god, I should ask that for Christmas. Anyways, I love you guys very, very much, and do something that makes you happy today.